Hello everybody, this is Chris Feehan from the ECG Armory again. This is episode 21 and it should be our final or next to final episode. I just have 3 other items that we have to do to try to finish up everything. I have to do the lens for the eyes in the helmet. We have to do some padding for the legs. And then basically just go through our inventory, make sure we have everything we need to start doing the suit up process and get everything going. So let's get started on the lenses. As I had showed you the other time, last time, I had put some posts right that were Chicago screws right at specific key points where I think would really work well for the lenses. And I'm hoping that I can cut this and get it to line up exactly with where these posts are. I'm using this piece of plastic as like kind of a guide so that I can cut appropriately exactly where I need and not have any waste and make sure I have enough material to hit those posts. And I think I kind of have a good idea from using this as an analog. And I'm going to take the strip and cut it and then go from there. And that's really the most nerve-wracking part right now. I'm trying to make sure I cut it appropriately and I do it so that the best parts of it are showing. And I want to make sure that I have just enough to reach and maybe have a little extra in case I need it down the line for something else. So I'm just lining it up, making sure it hits the lenses completely, covers the eyes completely. And then I'm going to make my cuts and my holes for the posts for these to stick in. So I can kind of see where it lands here. I'm just doing it to true it up to see that everything lines up where I think it lines up. And so far so good. Everything seems to be lining up really well with my mock-up. It's a little tight on this side. This side, it's right at the edge of the lens, so I'm going to have to make sure I get that hole exactly right. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to draw on the lens, back of the lens material itself, where the posts are. First I'm going to put just a dot with the Sharpie exactly where the posts are, because I'm going to need to make sure that I hit all the posts that I'm using here. I want to get them directly in the middle of these holes here without any movement. Let me make sure we're lining up here. That's lining up, that's lining up. This one, unfortunately, is going to be very close. I can see it just makes it to the bottom. So I'm going to have to be very careful with this one here. Yes, it's going to be very close. So let me make sure I got that, and I can see where those dots are. I'm going to have to make sure I cut this appropriately so I hit all those dots. So I am going to make my first cut here, and I'm going to leave enough room so that the post can grab it. Making sure that that's going to make it okay. We'll do this one on a little bit of an angle. So I'm just cutting the material. Okay, I'm making sure I got the right side. Jesus, I almost... Okay, that's the right side. That's the nice shiny side. Okay, and that's the back. I want to cut off these hard edges. Okay, now I'm going to use my hole puncher for my fabric, and I'm going to see if this is going to go through this material well enough to make a nice clean hole. It looks like it is. one hole. Before I send it home, let me make sure everything fits appropriately again. One last time. I just want to make doubly sure it's going to reach the whole way. And I can see some inconsistencies from my initial dots, so I'm going to make sure. I'm going to true this up and actually secure them as I go and make sure that I'm hitting every single one. Let me make sure I can fit through the hole that I just made. Yeah, the screw just fits through that hole. Crucial that I get this right and that I get it really flush against the lenses, because you don't want any gap. So I'm just double checking that I'm going to make it the whole way. And I'm using some pressure to push down on stuff. Okay, so I'm going to readjust these holes a teeny bit, because now when I put some pressure on it, it changes it slightly. Okay, and I'm going to do the next one. Let me just make sure it's lining up properly. The middle's lining up. Those other two are lining up, so let's see where we go from here. Let's see how that looks from the front. Oh, that looks beautiful. Okay. So I make sure I'm hitting every single one exactly on that hole, those holes, without any slack. Okay, that looks good. So I'm going to take off this screw carefully. I might have to use the screwdriver carefully. Okay, I'm going to make the rest of the holes. They look like they line up very well. So I'm just, where I marked, I'm punching holes. This is usually used for the fabric, but it works very well even for thin plastic materials, so that's what I'm using. The middle one's going to be the most crucial, so I want to make sure I just hit this middle one appropriately here. And this makes really nice clean holes, so I'm hoping this will be the best solution for this. And then one more. Make sure I get a dead center in there. Okay, I have a rag here. I'm just going to wipe this down a little while I have it out. Okay, now we're going to start putting it in. Again, I'm using Chicago screw posts. I'm just going to lay this in here now and start screwing them in very gingerly, and hopefully I'll hit all the posts and they will hold this in very securely. It's a much cleaner solution than what I usually do, which I think I explained last time, is I put them through the screws that are holding the ears on. That's really not ideal, because then you have the screw holes sticking out there and you have to loosen those. I prefer not to loosen them if I can avoid it. Get this in the hole. Start screwing it in. This should hold this incredibly securely. and make for a very clean look inside the helmet, which I like. And it's going to be very tight, so I got to just work it and make sure I get them in the posts correctly. And these posts are glued in with a combination of CA glue and I put a little extra E6000 on there as well after the fact, just to make sure they were as secure as possible. And that one I lost the screw. Let me stick the screws in first through the hole so we have them in there. This should also make it easy to replace this and easy to clean it. If I ever have to clean it, I can just take out these 5 screws and clean it. So that's what it's going to look like. Let me just start attaching them, make sure I hit the posts properly without bending this material too much or leaving any marks in the material itself. And I have a screwdriver here that just fits in the helmet here. Get that one in. I get the middle. The middle one's going to be tough because I put a lot of pressure on there just to squeeze it in there. I'm just feeling with my fingers on both sides, making sure it lines up. And there we got it. Just tightening that down the middle. And look at the other 2 sides. And the last one, it's going to be the tricky one. Oh, it seems to just fall right into place, which is great. And that's the beauty of doing some pre-work and visualization and making a template. Okay, let's see how that looks. That looks really sharp. The lenses look nice and smooth, which I like. Not a lot of distortion. And as you can see, they're only held on by those 5 Chicago screws there. In a very nice, neat arrangement. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if I ever need to get that out, I just take those out and they're out. Again, I had made one way down here just in case to hold it on the bottom, which isn't needed. For some lenses, they are that big, and that would be useful, but we'll worry about that down the line if I ever want to swap them out. But the lenses are looking really nice in position. And I like the general look of the whole silver look here. Okay, so that's looking good. Nothing really else with the helmet now. I already put in the strap, as you can see here. I measured a strap, put 2 snaps again instead of doing it on the screws themselves. And there we have it. We have that all set to go. So I think the helmet's all finished. We can put that aside, and then we're going to talk about doing the shins. We have to just put on the Velcro on the shins, which only takes a minute. And then we're going to talk a little bit about padding. Now, in the last video, you might have seen me shine up this stuff. You can see now how shiny and glistening these are. Now we have to tackle just putting the Velcro on the back so that we can secure these. There's one other piece I will have to do with these shins, which I can show you with the boots, is when you have the boots on, they do tend to move up and down on the shins. So you want to keep the back usually free, so you can go upstairs and you can bend and do it, and they'll move a little bit. But you want to secure the boot in the front. That stops this from spinning around, and it also stops it from riding too high, so that then the back of the shoe gets caught. Now, unfortunately, these particular model black shoes do not have the little lip in the front. So I might either put a snap right here or some Velcro right here, and then put an associated piece in the front here. I'm going to wait until I size up the shins and do some wearing tests and some stair tests to see that if that's going to be where exactly that's going to land. Because right now I'm actually not sure. So that you leave as a last step when you're sizing everything up and making sure that everything's fitting appropriately. Now for this, for the length of this strip, you're going to put Velcro down the entire length. And what I like to do is on the flap side, what we call the flap side, the one with the cover strip, I put the fabric, because that's the part that might actually touch your skin on the back if there's some overlap. So I put the fabric on that side, and I put the Velcro part right on this front part here. And then when you close it, it'll grip onto that and keep this closed. Usually you use the 1-inch Velcro. I'm using the full Velcro, the full, I think this is about 2 inches. What I'm going to do is cut this exactly in half and make an inch strip that I'm going to put here, and an inch strip I'm going to put here, and then the associated piece on the other side. So I'm going to get the two pieces, the hook and the fabric side, loop side, and just line them up here. Make sure they're lined up perfectly, and then I'm going to cut it right down the middle with my Cutco scissors here. So let me just make sure these are lined up, and these will cut right through the two layers at the same time, which is great. Let's size up exactly how much we're going to need. We're going to need it to go right from the top right to the bottom, and then we can trim off any excess that we have there. But that's about here, so I'm just going to snip it right here, and then cut this the entire length down, right down the middle. Now sometimes people use a little more, sometimes you can use a little more fabric on the top part. We can do that as well. We'll see how this shapes up, and then we'll go from there. So let me just make sure, yeah, that inch will cover that entire strip, so that's perfect. So let's just get a ruler. Okay, we're at 2 inches there. I'm going to make a mark on the top with my Sharpie here, my silver Sharpie, so I can actually see it. Make a mark on the top here where the 1-inch mark is, and on the bottom where the 1-inch mark is. And then a line in between, so I can cut the entire length down along this line here. Again, it can be rough, but I want to keep it pretty straight the whole way down. We get the idea. It doesn't have to be messy. That's just the backing of the Velcro. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, so let's just cut that down the entire length. Again, you could use 1 inch for this, but I like to use the industrial Velcro, which comes in the 2-inch, and then just cut it as necessary. Cut that right down the middle. And this will give us a nice 1-inch strip of both the hook and the loop side that we can use for the shins. Okay. So let's get the exact size we're going to need. Let's check first with the hook side. And determine exactly how much we need here. We're going to go right up into, butt it right up against that piece right there. And we're going to cut off the excess at the bottom. I'll leave a little bit of a space, but I want to go almost right to the edge. Now this other little piece I'm going to keep. I might actually use that here on the part that overlaps. We're going to see about that. Sometimes that helps keep it all together. I'm just going to wipe this down and make sure that it's clean there. And we can apply that right to the armor. And you want to do this as tight as possible, and you want to keep it straight, so I'm just going to start here and then work my way up. I like to go right to the edge, maybe a little teeny bit left over. And just make sure I'm doing it really tight the entire way down. I'm just going to, with my fingers, just make sure I press down all the way down. Now sometimes this does, after a while, start peeling off, and that's again why I don't like to use Velcro throughout the outfit. I like to use snaps, because this material sometimes does break down, the glue breaks down, and it becomes a mess. So I prefer to use as little Velcro on this outfit as I can. Now you can use hooks and loops here. That was the screen accurate way to do it, and that's a lot more work and a lot more challenging. It's also harder to get on and off. For me, I've tried it before. I had it on my RS props kit, so I try to avoid that when possible. So now I'm going to do the inside. This is going to be a little harder. I'm going to have to just carefully bend this back as I stick this on and try to keep it again right to the edge of that cover strip. And this one I just realized I forgot to gut, so when we get to the bottom, I'm going to have to cut off any excess. Let me get the angle right, and just off a little. Just going to work this with my thumb. Try not to catch everything on this Velcro. That's the parts I'm going to have to cut off anyway. Yeah, let me clean up the area and get this stuff out of the way. Again, I want to do it nice and tight. You don't want to get any air bubbles in the Velcro if you can avoid it. So I'm just with my finger pulling it tight as I press down. And again, right to the edge of the cover strip. Snip off that extra piece there. Actually, I might go a little before the end, just so it doesn't give me. Okay. So now this will be able to easily just fold over and secure the back of the leg when you have it on. And because it's black Velcro and it's black on black, you shouldn't see much of that seam, but that'll keep the back very well secure as you're trooping in. Okay, that's looking good. Okay, now we also have to do the other leg. Let me get that one done. And we'll do the same thing with the strip that we just cut. And get the length right, and this time cut both of them simultaneously before separating. Just a little before the end, we'll cut it right there. For this one, I think I'm going to do the top part first. I think that's going to be easier, because I could always overlap the other one. halfway down. Okay, let me get it from the other end. So this time, just because it'll be easier, I won't keep getting caught up by the other side. Again, I'm going to go right to the edge here. Try to get the angle right so that it's straight the whole way down. The angle's a little off. Let me start again. Make sure it's laying flat. I think I got a little kink in there. Let me just try to get that out. I'm just making sure it's laying flat the whole way. Still got a little excess. I think this side was a little shorter than the other. I'm just going to trim that. Again, just a little before the end. Let's do the other side. Let's make sure that that lines up. That one can be trimmed a little bit too. Let me take out another, just a little teeny piece. We can start putting on the other side. And again, this is pretty much this and a little on the shoulder straps is the only place I use Velcro anywhere in the entire outfit, just because I don't like how it breaks down. The other place we're going to use the Velcro is the padding. And the last step we're going to do today is get the padding ready that we're going to put in the throughout the outfit, just to make it a little more comfortable in certain spots that can be problematic, including the knees and the tips of the shins here, which I might actually go ahead and put that in there after I make the first ones. The legs are a little more difficult. The upper thighs, you kind of have to figure out exactly what would be the best spot for you, and then size up and put them in there. I don't have any bubbles in there. Okay, that's laying down really nice. Just tight, make sure it's the whole way down, it's nice and tight. And again, this is going to lay right in that track. Like this. And this is going to secure this very securely, like so. And this is facing on the inside, so that's not really going to be noticeable to people, but it's going to keep it nice and closed. It's going to give you that nice clean look, and it's going to keep it very, very tight. Put that aside as well. And then we'll get started on the padding, and I'll show you what I use as a solution for the padding. Basically, I use air conditioner foam. You can use the 1-inch type, but that I don't find very useful, or the 2-inch type. I use almost exclusively the 2-inch type. And what I'm going to do is make blocks like this with Velcro on one side, the fabric Velcro, and then I do put little Velcro hook strips in the armor in strategic spots. And stick this in there, and that way if this gets disgusting over time just from sweating in the costume, or if it gets dirty, or if you lose one, you can make a replacement very easily. Just get another piece of the air conditioner foam and throw some Velcro on it. So it's a very easy solution. It's also incredibly comfortable. If you put this in the right spots in the armor, which we'll go over when we do the sizing and the final setup, it's very comfortable to wear, and it really helps in any spots that you might get rubs and other things in the armor. I basically use about 24 inches of this, so I'm going to just measure out where 24 is and cut it there. So it's about that length. I'm just going to take my scissors and cut right across and snip it right there. And what I'm going to do is put the Velcro right on here. Right across the middle, and then trim off the ends. And this Velcro glue is usually pretty strong and will actually hold to this foam very well. And you notice the foam, which is also a nice feature, is almost exactly the same dimensions as the strip itself. And I'm using the wrong side. Jeez, I got to use the fabric side, which I already cut a strip that's 24 inches. So we're going to put fabric side Velcro right across the edge. Now sometimes this doesn't adhere perfectly, and then I'll use a little E6000 or other glue to try to hold it a little better, but most of the time it does. So I'm just going to peel this off and put this on that strip of foam. And then as needed, as we make the foam blocks, we're going to strategically place them in the armor, and I'll show you the spots. So I'm going to give you a demonstration that I have set up for exactly what I mean by rubs and also keeping the armor from moving. I'll show you exactly what I mean by that after I get this one done. So I'm carefully just lining that up. I'm going to line it up the whole way down, nice and straight. And I'm doing 24 inches, you'll see later, because just for my calculations, that's usually about how much of this you're going to need, cutting it into 2-inch and 4-inch blocks. If I need more, I could always make some more. I'll have some extra material here. Just making sure I get that straight the entire length down. And then I just press it, make sure it's pressed on there good. And we can do one in the legs because I know exactly where it's going to go in the shins. I'm just pressing down, making sure the glue is really adhering really well. Now we can start with the first block that I'm going to do. There's a few that I know exactly where I'm going to put them, and I already know that it's a foregone conclusion, so I'm going to make two 2-inch blocks. So I'm just going to roughly cut right here. I don't mind getting that little extra bit there. I'll measure about 2 inches and cut through all the material in one shot. Hold on. About here. Again, this doesn't have to be exact. This is just, again, inside padding that nobody's ever going to see but you. So now I have this little cube, this little 2x2x2 cube. This one's a little bigger, it's a little uneven. I'm just going to trim it down a little bit. You get these little cubes. In the shins specifically, the spot I like to keep these is right here, right where your knee starts. And it keeps this from rotating, it keeps it nice and tight. And it's also something that nobody can see because it's in the armor. So I'm going to cut a 2-inch blocks of this, the hook side material. I can go a little less than 2 inches actually here. I'll cut a little block there. It's a little less than 2 inches, that's fine. I'm just going to cut 2 little squares out of this material, and I'm just going to stick that in the armor where I know it's going to have to be. Now if I have to move them, I can move the plates, these plates, but I know pretty much it's dead center right there in the shin. And that's far enough down that people aren't going to see it. And it does provide the comfort and the stability to stop this from spinning around. I'm just going to stick that right about here. Make sure that plate's in there good. And then just stick the block on there. Now, again, it looks ridiculous right now, but when you put your leg in there, this is going to compress, and it's going to form fit right to your leg, and it's going to stop the movement, and it's also going to provide some padding so this doesn't constantly rub up against your knee. So that one pad there is going to be sufficient for the needs of this entire piece. I'm going to do the same on the other one. And then I'm going to give you a demonstration of what I do with the forearms, and I might actually do the forearms while we're at it. And we'll do the legs when we're actually doing the sizing, because the legs are a little more difficult. The legs, you really have to find just the right place based on the shape of the legs and the shape of of your legs in comparison to the armor. Peel that off, and this one's going to go about the same place, right like where the line starts. I'm going to try to get that nice and flat down on that curve. And again, this will form fit to the armor and to your leg. I'm just going to stick this block right in there. And that's not going anywhere. That's going to stay in there. And again, as your leg compresses it, it's going to give you some padding, and it's going to stop this from rotating too much. So there's the padding for the shins. And now I'm going to do the forearms and just show you a demonstration with the forearms that really illustrates my point here. Carefully get these in here. And get my forearms ready. Now the forearms are always a little bigger than your actual arms because you got to make them bigger so you can get your hand in. So when you put your arm in, you'll notice that there's a lot of wobble and there's a lot of space in there. So I'm going to give you a demonstration just quickly. I'm going to put both of these on, and I'm going to put padding in one and not in the other one. You'll see the difference. Okay, so for my left, let me make sure this is the left one. This is the right one. For the left one, I'm going to stick it on, and I'm going to put padding in. I'm just going to put a 2-inch block right about here. This way nobody can see it. It's in there, and it's just going to keep it so that my arm here doesn't get any cuts, and it keeps that away from digging into my my forearm here, my elbow inside of my arm. So you'll see that. Now if I do it on the right arm and I don't put anything, let me just show you. If I'm moving around, it stays with my hand. If I'm moving like this, it's not going to shift. It keeps it in that nice stable position right in the middle, and it doesn't move around. It just stays there. And it keeps it in line with the rest of the armor. When I put the bicep on, you're going to see the line is going to meet up exactly with that, so it'll keep this in place. Now this one, if I don't do that, and I move around with the armor, that strap is not going to hold this. This is going to go like this, and it's going to want to sit like this. So then you'd be walking around with your armor with this part facing completely down, which is not what you want. You want this to be like this and stay in line with the bicep line. And that's not going to be possible unless you put something in there, because it's just going to spin around and move because there's nothing holding it in place. Just that one little simple 4-inch block of 2-inch foam is enough to keep that stable and keep it on your arm in the exact position you put it on, and it's not going to spin around and it's not going to float around. It's going to stay right where it is. And that's not even with it secured in there. That's just with me shoving it in there. When you secure it in there, it's going to be a completely different story, and it's going to stay perfectly in there. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there right in the middle. I'm going to put a 4-inch block, which are these that I already had cut, in there, and that's going to keep my forearms from floating around and spinning around. I'm going to do a 2-inch block in the biceps as well to keep them from spinning around. And that's all I'm going to do with the arms. Again, the legs are a little more difficult, and the legs are going to require a little more work. So let me just get the Velcro for that. We'll cut 2 4-inch pieces approximately. Doesn't actually have to be perfect. It's just got to be about that size. one and the second one. And I'm just going to stick them in the forearms with the padding. So again, this is another very quick solution, a very quick way to really finish off the armor, make it really comfortable on your arm, and keep it stable and keep it from moving around. I'm going to find about the middle point, stick this in. You see how that looks there? I'm going to do the same on the other one. And again, this is something that can be replaced, can be swapped out if you ever have a need to change them or clean them. Find about the middle point. Just stick that in there, and then stick my block in there. And that's far enough away that you're not going to really see it. So now I can put these both on. They're going to be incredibly stable. They're going to stay in that position with the line in line with your arm. And they're not going to jiggle around. They're not going to move. They're going to look like they're part of you, which is what you want. You want them to stay stable and not be jiggling all around and spinning around. And really that's the secret. The secret is putting in these little blocks of foam and keeping everything stable. And it also adds some comfort. It's very comfortable having that in there and not having this jiggle around your body. Okay, so I think that's everything that we needed to do. I'm just going to review some of the other pieces you're going to need that you might not even think of, just so you kind of have an idea of the last steps before we get started with the actual assembly. I need to clean up my area here. Get rid of these, all this Velcro stuff, and show you my bag of stuff that I had to purchase for the armor. And just to give you an idea of the other stuff you're going to need when you're putting together a set of Stormtrooper armor. So the first thing and most important thing is a dive suit or other completely black suit. I use these Lycra dive suits. They're only about $50. You can get them on eBay or on Amazon. This is a ProMate one that zippers up the front. You make sure it has no markings. Even this little ProMate thing I'm probably going to black out with some marker. But you're not even going to see that because that's going to be behind the chest piece. But you make sure it has no other markings on it, no other indicators, no numbers, no lines, no nothing. And it's just a full body Lycra dive suit. These go again for about $40 to $50, so put that on your list of things that you might have to acquire. I also like the ones with the leg stirrups. These have the leg stirrups that you can put below your socks. That keeps the legs down and keeps everything nice and tight. The other optional thing I do buy, which I haven't gotten yet, but it's on the way, is knee supports. I like to put knee supports on my knees for comfort and when I'm on my feet all day, but also because it stops some rubbing on your knees from the armor, and it gives you a little extra protection. You're going to need a neck seal. I have a nice one here that I got from a maker on the 501st that has a little shiny material. I'm probably going to tuck that in anyway, but I like the shininess of the neck seal. These go anywhere from $40 to about $100. I also have an Anavos one that I used for my, a Novos one that I used for my first order Stormtrooper, and I like it very much, but that one's will cost you about $60 or $80. This one was only about $40. It's very well made. It's measured to my neck, and that's another piece you're going to need, so make sure you plan to get a neck seal. The other thing you might not even think of ahead of time is the helmet and how you're going to store and transport the helmet. I like to use a helmet bag that you can get on Amazon. It's a Amazon Basic motorcycle helmet bag. It only runs for about $35, and I use this for my Stormtrooper helmet, and I've been using it for years, and I really like it. It's very big. It expands out really big. I'm going to show you. I'll put the helmet in it right now just to store it. It's got a nice felt lining inside, so it's nice and soft. And it's got a rubber bottom, so that if you put this down on something wet or something, it's not going to go through. It's going to protect it a little bit. So The bottom part has that rubberish thing. It has a handle. And I'm going to get my helmet and put it in there and show you it fits absolutely perfectly in here, because it's meant for a motorcycle helmet. So you put it in, you got to kind of maneuver it, but you can get it, pop it right in there and zipper it up, and you can just transport around your helmet in this helmet bag. It doesn't have a ton of padding. They do make some other options. You can, through the 501st, there's a couple of makers that make custom helmet bags and will even embroider your name on them. Those run between $50 and $60 and sometimes more depending on if you get a specific lining. But just for a cheap, very quick solution, that's a great solution to look for. So look for an Amazon Basic motorcycle helmet bag. Great for transporting your helmet. You also need something to store the armor in, and we'll go over this later when we talk about storage. This I can't really show you in this area, but I like to use an American Tourister bag. It's a large, hard suitcase, and that fits all my armor and my weapon. And I like to take that around to when I go to conventions and go to different trooping events. I have one for my Stormtrooper that's a Stormtrooper theme. That one's a black Darth Vader theme one. So make sure you think about travel solutions, transporting solutions. You can also use a large goalie hockey bag. But again, with most suitcases and most hockey bags, the helmet won't actually fit in there. So you will also need probably that motorcycle helmet bag or another similar bag. Now the last item you're going to need, that's an essential item, is gloves. Now, according to the CRL, if you want level 2 certification for a Shadow Stormtrooper or a regular Stormtrooper, you're going to need black, plain chemical gloves. You want to get chemical gloves that don't have any markings on them. And this part is going to go inside the armor, so you won't even see that. So you get completely black chemical gloves. These are ridiculously uncomfortable. You sweat ridiculously in them. This set I got on Amazon also comes with these gloves, but these would probably not last you very long. What I like to do in whether I'm wearing the rubber gloves or regular gloves, I like to put these disposable gloves on first. That way any sweat or anything doesn't permeate through the gloves and get the gloves all sweaty and stinky, which I've had happen with other gloves in the past. So I would normally take one of these. With this set, I'd probably also use these cotton ones on top of that, and then use the chemical gloves themselves. Now that's very uncomfortable wearing this all day or at a troop. It's really not the most comfortable thing in the world, but this is the accurate thing that you should use, is rubber chemical gloves with no markings on them. And then you put the hand plates. I have hand plates here too. I'll just show you quick. The hand plates, I've already put on straps. I finished that procedure the other day. So that what I like to do is have the rubber gloves if I want to go uber accurate, but I also like to buy other gloves, and I'll show you those in a minute. So with these straps that I created, you can actually put this on your hand, and whichever gloves you're using, you can just pop these on. And I use 2 straps, one for around the wrist and one for around the middle of the hand. And that holds down the hand plate really well, whether you're wearing the rubber gloves or another set of gloves. And it keeps it nice and centered, it keeps it tight to your hand, and that's pretty much what it's going to look like when you're done. Now again, I don't like to use the rubber gloves on a daily basis or on a regular basis because they are uncomfortable, they are a pain in the neck, and I'd much rather be comfortable and have some tactical feedback within the gloves. So what most people do is use what they call Nomex gloves, which are just like tactical gloves that you can get also on Amazon or eBay or any other online service. And the ones I got here I really like. These are Nomex gloves with a little bit of leather applique on them. These are much more comfortable to wear. Again, I would still wear them with a glove underneath, just so that I don't get them all messy over time. But these are a lot more comfortable, a lot easier to work with. They breathe a little better on the back of your hand and the rest of your arm, and they're just a little more form-fitting. They're not as clunky as the rubber gloves. And these, the same procedure. I can just pop this on and get that same kind of look. And it's really your preference. If you want to go uber accurate, you can go with the rubber gloves, or you can use the Nomex type here. The fabric gloves with an applique. But again, when you're getting the gloves, make sure you don't get anything with any kind of logo or anything on them. Even having this extra padding can be questionable. They really should just be all black with no markings and no other real attributes to them, so that they just look like plain black gloves. Again, these are probably the ones I'm going to use as my daily gloves, my go-to gloves. And the rubber gloves, when I'm looking to go super uber accurate, I'll use the super uber accurate gloves. Now, there's one other thing that I do sometimes use, and that's a helmet fan. And there's a lot of different helmet fan solutions. What I've found to be the easiest and most affordable helmet solution for a helmet fan, believe it or not, is an off clip-on mosquito repellent fan. These you can pick up in the store for about $10 or $15, and you can easily adapt these to go in the helmet. And I think I'll do a separate video just to show exactly how you do that. Basically, these have little chemicals that you put in there to ward off mosquitoes. Now, what you have to do is you have to remove the chemical, which I'll show you how to do, and put it in there so that it tricks this little sensor into thinking that it actually has the material in there. And then you turn on the fan, and it gives you a really nice amount of air flowing through here, out the top here. And then I just rip this off and put some Velcro in the back and stick that right in the nose of the helmet. We'll go over that in another video, but I just want to show you that that's something else you should consider, is a helmet fan solution once you get to that point and you're ready to go trooping. Well, anyway, thanks for joining me today on the ECG Armory. I think we got everything we need. I don't think there's anything else we've forgotten. I'll probably think of 12 things before next week's episode. But for next week's episode, we're going to do the suit-up procedure. We're going to put in the final padding where we figure out where exactly it's necessary, and go from there. So thanks, everybody, for joining me, and I hope this was helpful, going over just some of the other items that you need, and the padding solution, and the visor. And again, if you have any comments or questions, please leave them below, and I'll be happy to answer them. And again, I'd love any feedback, and if you have any other ideas, I'd love to share them with others. Thanks, everybody.